Hey guys, welcome back to Our Maine Homestead. Today I just wanted to kind of give you guys an update on all of the cancer related stuff. It's all good news, but last time we left off basically where I was waiting to go get a CT done, just to assess whether or not the cervical cancer had spread anywhere, and luckily we got those results back, and it showed that there was no metastasis. It was all contained in my cervix. So the next step was speaking to the gynecologic oncologist to discuss treatment options and prognosis and all of that stuff, which we were still pretty we were feeling pretty positive still about, just because especially after getting those CT results back, it was like this huge weight was lifted off of our shoulders, and we just felt so much better about the situation and kind of had this feeling like everything going forward was just kind of downhill from here. So like we had gotten over that big hump of the scary unknowns, whether it had metastasized or anything like that, and it didn't. So like I said, the next step was talking to the gynecologic oncologist, and they are located in Portland, which is about 4 hours south of us. So luckily, just because of the commute and with everything that's going on these days, we were luckily able to do a telehealth visit. So we got to do our visit via a Zoom phone call, and we were really impressed with the oncologist. She was amazing. She talked to us about every single thing, and I did make some notes so that I wouldn't forget. But she basically confirmed that we were stage 1A, which is like microscopic cancer. So it was literally the best case scenario as far as stage wise, and just how early we caught it, that it was really best case scenario if you're going to have something like this going on. So we discussed a lot of treatment options, and Eddie and I had already kind of talked about it beforehand, and had decided that we were going to go the hysterectomy route, just because that was going to be the most I guess solid choice as far as being curative, not risking my health, not risking you know, any chance of recurrence, things like that. And so we had pretty much already decided that, and we had talked to her about that, and she recommended that as well, just because that was going to give us the best outcome, best case scenario, as far as not having to deal with this ever again. And being the stage that we were at, a hysterectomy was considered curative. We did discuss some treatment options that would preserve fertility, but basically all of those options were just really going to restructure my entire like reproductive anatomy, and basically leave the cervix to where it really wasn't going to be able to do its job. And when you're pregnant, your cervix's job is to hold the baby in, and when you're not pregnant, its job is to keep bacteria and things out of the uterus so that it doesn't get an infection. And so basically any treatment options that would preserve fertility generally were going to compromise my cervix so much that even if we did get pregnant again, it more than likely would not go to full term. So there was a really high risk of like premature delivery, preterm labor, things like that, and just issues with miscarriages and stuff. So, you know, that just kind of reinforced the decision that we had already made, to just go the hysterectomy route. And then we did discuss, because Portland, which is where we were going to have to go for the surgery, is kind of a hot spot for things going on these days. And the reason that I don't actually say the word is, I mean, you guys all know what I'm talking about, but the reason I don't say it is because YouTube likes to hide videos that talk about that or has that word in it. So you guys all know what I'm talking about. Because that was going on so much in Portland, we were a little concerned about having to go to a hospital to have surgery done, and luckily the oncologist said that more than likely we were going to, since it was going to be such a simple hysterectomy and we wouldn't have to do a lot of invasive stuff as far as the lymph nodes were concerned and things like that, that I was able to get it done at a surgical center. So it was an outpatient procedure, and one that would have very low risk for getting sick or being exposed to anything like that. So luckily we were able to do it there. Before that was actually confirmed and decided that we were going to have the surgery done at a surgical center, the oncology pathologists were going to look at my slides from the biopsy from my LEAP procedure, because Dr. Bradford wanted to check one more piece of information, whether or not the lymphovascular spaces were clear or not of any cancer and severe dysplasia. And luckily those spaces were clear, and so what that helped determine was the fact that I wouldn't have to have my lymph nodes biopsied or removed or anything like that. So the lymph nodes were not compromised, and so that basically confirmed that yes, it's just going to be a simple hysterectomy that removes the cervix, the uterus, and the fallopian tubes, and we were going to be able to do that at the surgical center as an outpatient procedure. And so again, like I said, I got to keep all my lymph nodes, didn't have to do anything with those, and then I also got to keep my ovaries, which was really important for me because that means I didn't have to go through menopause at 33 and don't have to do any hormone replacement therapy and all of that stuff. So all of that was really great news as well. So yeah, so we went down there. My surgery was scheduled for May 11th, so just this past Monday. And so Eddie and I decided that we were going to go down on Sunday, May 10th, spend the night since I had to be at the surgical center super early in the morning. He and Emery just dropped me off that morning. The baby wasn't allowed to go into the surgical center, and technically Eddie could have gone like if the baby wasn't there, but obviously we didn't want to risk him getting exposed to anything and her getting exposed to anything. So they dropped me off, and so I went in by myself. I was not very nervous at all. I was kind of ready just to get it done and over with, and so I don't usually get too nervous about things like that, or really medical things at all. I mean, shoot, I had a home birth, so obviously I'm not super like anxious or anything about going through pain or anything like that. So I went in, I met with all of the doctors, the anesthesiologists, the nurses, and everybody were just wonderful and made me feel super at ease, and it was just a really nice experience, I guess, if you have to have an experience like that. That was basically my first surgery ever, and so it was definitely a new thing. But yeah, so went into surgery. Surgery took a couple hours, and then recovery time, I think I stayed there for a couple hours, and I didn't really have like a whole lot of pain or anything. I was able to get up and walk and get myself dressed and go to the bathroom fairly quickly afterwards. I talked to the anesthesiologist about breastfeeding as well, because I had been pumping for about a week leading up to surgery, just so that we'd have a good stockpile. I was under the impression from my research and things like that that I was probably going to have to pump and dump for about 24 hours, and the anesthesiologist told me that with today's medications and things for anesthesia, there's very, very like trace amounts of medication that get into breast milk, and so in general they say that you can just immediately start breastfeeding again after surgery, but since they knew that I was exclusively breastfeeding, they kept all medications and everything to the bare minimum, so that was really, really nice. And especially for Emery, that was really nice, because I guess while I was in surgery, Eddie was trying to give her a bottle and she was not having it and was just fussy, fussy, fussy. So that was the first thing that we did when they came to pick me up. But I recovered pretty quickly, woke up pretty quickly. I didn't really say anything super funny or anything like that. Of course, Eddie wasn't in there with me post-op, but I did call him because I had a cell phone that I could call him on, and so I called him and talked to him, and he said that I sounded pretty lucid and normal. So didn't really have any funny stories about waking up from surgery. But they came and picked me up. The first thing we did in the parking lot was feed Emery, so she was happy about that. I was happy about that. And then we went back to our hotel room and we spent the night again before coming back home the next day. So I'm actually been very, very surprised that I haven't been more painful. Really only the kind of painful thing, I guess, post-op was just gas pain. So like where they it was a simple laparoscopic procedure, and so of course with the laparoscopic procedures they'll fill your abdomen like with gas so that they can see what they're doing in there, and then some of that gas does get trapped and then it'll migrate up. And so I was having a little bit of gas pain in my right rib cage and then up in my right shoulder, and it really just feels kind of like a sore muscle, like I could use a nice little neck massage or something. But it's not bad at all, and so that's really the only like discomfort or anything that I feel. I am taking it very easy. The heaviest thing that I'm lifting these days is Emery, which is not too bad. She's just a tiny bit over the weight limit of 10 pounds that I'm not supposed to be lifting more than. But yeah, so it's going pretty easy and recovery's not bad. The drive back wasn't really bad at all, and so I'm just managing pain with like ibuprofen and Tylenol. And then yeah, so I've been talking to the nurses since I've been back home, and everybody's been calling to check, and so everybody's been very impressed with how well I'm doing. I'm impressed with how well I'm doing. But recovery in total will take about 6 weeks before I can kind of get back to really my normal activity as far as like exercising or lifting things and stuff like that. I can do light activity now, so I am trying to get up and move around as much as possible, and help Eddie where I can without lifting too much, and then of course taking care of Emery. So otherwise you can find me napping or binge watching TV. But yeah, so yesterday afternoon we did get a phone call from Dr. Bradford as well, the oncologist, who confirmed that our very final pathology report that came back from, you know, what all she had removed did show that everything was clear of cancer. So we had all suspected, because it was basically a little microscopic cancer spot, that the actual cancer was probably all removed when I had my LEAP procedure done at the beginning of April. But because the margins still showed, you know, severe dysplasia and severe, you know, precancerous cells on those margins, that I would have developed cancer again sometime at some point. So that's why we moved forward with basically cancer treatment. So but yeah, so everything showed that 100% we are cancer free. We can get back to normal life, normal mental and emotional states, and don't have to worry about that anymore. And so I'm just really, of course, happy that this is all behind us now, and I can just focus on recovering and getting back to normal life and sticking around for as long as possible to be a mom to this little girl who's laying right here, and being very good while I'm videotaping this. But yeah, so totally cancer free, and follow-ups are just going to be yearly pap smears going forward, and then eventually we'll go to the recommended frequency of pap smears, which is about every 3 years, I think, at this point. So yeah, so all good news. Everything went really well. We really had the best case scenario that we possibly could have had, being that we had to go through this. So huge weights have been lifted off of everybody's shoulders. All friends and family and parties involved can all breathe easily again, and I really, really, really do appreciate everybody's thoughts and prayers and well wishes and good vibes and whatever you sent my way. You guys have all just been so supportive and so wonderful, and I really am appreciative of all of my family and friends, whether you guys are all friends in real life or via social media or however we know each other. So thank you so much for following along. We are going to try to get back to normal videos, normal regularity again. So be on the lookout for another video coming up on Tuesday. And happy homesteading, everybody. Thank you so much for following along again. If you haven't already subscribed to our channel, be sure to do that. Give us a thumbs up here, and leave any comments in the comment section below, and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. And happy homesteading.